how I get consulting clients online and have done for over a decade. Hey, what's up? My name is Pete Scott, and if you've ever thought about consulting or you're thinking about starting a business, you're not sure what then consulting might be for you, then this video is definitely for you. By the way, it is 7 a.m. here and I'm in northern Thailand, Chiang Mai, which is my home for the last 2.5 years. Consulting is one of these things that when we think about, and when I tell most people that I consult for small companies right up to multi-billion-dollar companies, they always see it as somebody in a suit and going into offices, and that is a part of consulting, but it's definitely not everything when it comes to consulting. The other myth when it comes to consulting is that you need to have a bunch of degrees and you need to work for one of these big Fortune 500 companies or the big 3 consulting firms. And I don't even know too much about that type of consulting. So if you're here for that, this video is probably not going to be for you. For me, consulting is solving a specific and tangible problem and creating a change and transformation for that client. And so long as that client sees the value and it relates to them, they will go ahead and pay you for it. So for example, if you're bringing $100,000 of value to a company, you're in a position where they will very easily pay $10,000, even $20,000 for your consulting. Consulting isn't about hands-on work. There is some hands-on work. I've done a lot of hands-on work over the years, especially if I go back when I was consulting in London. I did 10 years consulting in London where I was going into companies, and at the beginning, it was just easier to get on the phone because my expertise is sales transformation, from individual beauty therapists, personal trainers, graphic designers, all the way up to these big brands. But when I was in London, it was mostly big companies and also salons as well. But most of these big companies, and I was going in, I wanted to experience it and do the lead generation with them. I'd even get on the phone, I'd even close some sales. But that isn't consulting at its purest. Consulting, you're paid for your advice. And this is where the nuances come in, and people say, oh yeah, you're just basically paid to go in and bullshit people. The funny thing is, right, and don't get me wrong, in the online space, there is a lot of bullshit. And there is plenty of people out there who will take your money and not give you any value in return. When it comes to consulting for big companies, they are not gonna pay you $50, let alone 50,000, 100,000 to work with them just to share hot air and bullshit. They're working with you because you are helping to solve the problem far better than they can. And this is, some insights here with what I feel consulting truly is. You're paid for advice, you're not paid for your time. You're paid specifically because you understand the client in the specific area that you can help them far better than they understand themselves. And it actually works out cheaper for them to bring in a consultant who can diagnose the actual problem, because a lot of the time you've got companies and you've got head of departments, they've got to focus on everything. They're not specializing in a specific area. So it just makes too much sense to bring somebody in to look at a specific thing. So for example, my area is sales transformation, and that's why the name of my business is Peaceful Sales and Consulting. I changed the name at the end of last year because for me, I no longer work from a place of stress and anxiety, and I talk about that a lot in other videos. So if you've not checked out my other videos, make sure you do. Also hit the like and subscribe button. Ultimately, when it comes to getting consulting clients, it's not about how many qualifications you've got or even how much experience you've got. You need to be able to solve a problem. And if you've only got 1 day's experience, but you can solve the problem, you can go and get clients. Now, that doesn't give permission just to wing it. It's way too sunny down here. Let me go back. It doesn't give us permission just to wing it, but think about if I can solve one problem within a period of time, say 90 days, what would that be? For me, it's sales. It's a tangible problem and it makes sense. But there's, companies, and there's so many industries, there's so many different types of companies. And if you don't want to go into big companies, you can start with, for example, salons. You can niche in that area, or you can work with bowling alleys or cinemas or restaurants. It's entirely up to you. But what I will say is that a few things. I've got to change hands here. Oi. I recommend that you grow where you've been planted. I hear a lot of people that say, oh, I want to help in the travel and tourism industry. I say, great, what's your experience in solving problems in the travel and tourism industry? And they say, well, I haven't got any. I've always worked in recruitment, okay, that's fine, but you want to be able to talk the language of an industry. So when I started out, I started off with gyms, I started with spas and salons because I'd managed in those industries. And therefore I was able to understand the behaviors, I understood the psychology, I understood their pains, and I understood them specifically better than they did themselves in the area that I could help. And then what you do is you say, okay, well, if I'm going to be solving this problem, then how long is it going to take me to do that? And if you don't know the answers to these questions right now, then my suggestion is to go get a client, because there's nothing worse than not having a client. And how I have got clients over the years, I started off and I just knew that I had to have a client, and I didn't give a shit if I worked with them for free. I didn't care if I was being paid based on performance. So if they got the result, then wonderful, they would pay me. And I made sure that my diary was never empty. If my diary was empty, that was the worst situation ever. But what I learned the lesson the hard way, I also made sure that I didn't go in and undercharge. And I did do that a couple of times at the beginning. So for example, I was charging £200, as in the UK, I was charging £200 a day to go in and consult. And one company I went into on a Tuesday and they said, oh no, we've not got you booked in today. None of the team are available and I'm not available. As the manager or the owner of the business, she said, can you come back on Thursday? And that was when I truly felt undervalued. And it was just like, I'm never, ever doing this again. So yeah, what I did is then I shifted and said, okay, I know I'm going to charge a lot of money for what I do, and I know it's valuable. And it did start to piss me off at the beginning, because what's happening is I was going in, charging $500 or whatever. And then they were like, oh, wow, the first client the next day. I remember actually there's a spa in London and in Mayfair, so a really high-end spa. And I charged them £250, right? And the following day after we implemented my sales method, one of their therapists who went through the training as well, she made a £2,800 sale. And the manager was like, wow, thank you so much, Pete. I've made a £2,800 sale. This is amazing. And I'm like, yeah, and you pay me £250. And I'd given them the goods, basically the value. And that was what I was left with. So I learned that if I'm going to charge less because I'm new, I'm letting them know, hey, I'm charging this amount because I know what I do is valuable, but right now I need case study clients. So, you can go and get 2-3 case study clients this month. Literally, you go get those case study clients and say, look, I believe in what I'm doing, but I just need a few clients to get started. You can charge, I can talk about it another time, but you can charge a market penetration pricing strategy, which is charging less, but stating you'll be charging more later. Do it for free, but don't do it at a loss. But if you're truly serious about this consulting, then that's what I'd recommend you do. These days, I have enough that comes through from the work that I do online, the longevity I've had. I mean, I've been doing this now for 15 years, so I get a lot of referrals and I get enough come through. But I'm gonna be honest, I've kind of been lazy the last 2.5 years. It's really bright right now. Because I've lived out here in Thailand, I've been semi-retired, also working through some healing, which is in my other videos. And I realized now is time to step back up again. So I'm gonna be sharing a lot more about this. I think a lot of the time we're looking for the shortcut, that golden nugget that's gonna help us to go and get consulting clients. But the fact is that if you know you can help some kind of person, some kind of industry, and you can help with a specific problem, create a transformation, the bigger the transformation, the more you'll be paid. But don't get caught up in just selling a bunch of services. I think that's where it gets confusing, is that we mistake consulting as delivering a bunch of services for someone, and then you just become commoditized like everybody else out there, everybody on Fiverr.com. There's nothing wrong with those things. But the question is, do you want to be paid thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands for your advice and for truly having, and I think this is something that is underrated. Because you're paid for your mind, you're paid for your unique point of view, you're paid for the way you can look at problems and you can help to see what's really going on. And that's what I would do when I used to consult in London for these big companies. They'd always bring me in wanting a day sales training, and I would say, look, I'm listening to you now. Do you mind if I share what I feel is truly going on? And they'd always say, yeah, of course, we appreciate that. I say, I don't think you need a day sales training. In fact, I think you're going to waste your money if you just have a day sales training. Instead, so I'm just going to meet my friend, so I'm getting ready to head out. Instead, what I recommend is that you look at the full ecosystem that's affecting your sales. And that is everything from your recruitment strategy to how you're training the teams, how you're leading the teams day to day, what support your management team have got in terms of the performance management. Let's look at your overall sales strategy for the next 3 months. What have you got in place? And they'd always look at me and be like, Pete, we haven't got anything like this in place at all. And for me, it was more of an integrity thing, right? And it still is today. I still get inquiries today and people saying, oh yeah, I just want to increase sales. Oh, that's great. You can get that in my group. By the way, if you're not in my community, Peaceful Sales and Consulting, click below, get in the community. As I'm filming this video, the community is free, but I'm going to be charging a small monthly subscription for the community. But yeah, most people when they first, or business owners when they first reach out to me, they're like, I just want to increase sales. I'm like, that's easy. We can increase sales. But the fact is, who are you going to become in the process? And are you going to be able to maintain this? Because if we just get a spike in sales, but you have no idea about all the other stuff that's going to help, from how you're thinking about sales, your sales strategy, how you're positioning yourself in the market, your overall lead generation process that you've got in place, where are your best leads coming from right now? The business owner will look at me and be like, I have no idea. Okay, so I appreciate we want to increase sales, that's wonderful, but let's go deeper than that. Consulting, you are paid for depth. And in this day and age, there is enough superficial bullshit out there. Think about the depth that you can bring. And just to finish up with this, I wasn't a great consultant. I don't consider that I'm the best consultant now, right? But I'm easy to work with. My clients are always happy. I support them. I'm dependable. You're not paid for your ability, you're paid for your dependability. And I look back to some of the world's biggest brands that used to pay me when I consulted for them back in the UK, and I used to travel all over. And I was cliche, right? I looked at it, I'm like, oh my goodness, but I was clear in the outcome, and I showed up on time, I delivered, and I invoiced, and I kept the relationship simple. I think there's a lot of overthinking in this online space. So what can you do today? What can you do for the next 3 days to get super clear on, okay, this is the problem I'm going to solve. And by the way, sometimes the way to get clear is go get a client. Go find out, go interview, go do the market research, speak to people. I sent out a questionnaire to over 70 companies at the beginning that I'd spoken to. I'd gone into these companies in London, I wasn't getting anywhere. I decided, right, I'm survey them. And I just said, hey, listen, what's the big challenge that you feel you've got? And I've asked a bunch of different questions about them. And then the final question, I said, I made the offer because I'd already made the offer to all of them. Why did you decide not to go ahead with me coming into a business to focus on transforming your sales? And they all said the same thing. They said, well, we didn't really see what you did that was different. And it's true, because at the time I was getting managers say, well, Pete, it's my job to manage the team and make sure they're selling. That's when I became clear that, do you know what? Number one, I can get the result, so I need to prove it and create that track record. But number two, I need to be clear that my methodology of doing this, and it's going to be different to what they're doing. So my thing is sales transformation, where you're selling for thousands per client instead of just trying to make more sales. All right, that's it for today. I got to go, and have a good one.